DeWanna has been in the league long enough to know better. She's seen the highs, she's been a champion, and she's had her moments as one of the WNBA's most respected veterans. Which is exactly why her recent behavior, calling Lexie a bum after losing her starting spot to her, feels less like competitive banter and more like a desperate swing from a player who's losing grip on her place in the hierarchy. Because here's the thing, when you're a vet and you're not playing your best basketball, the worst thing you can do is take a shot at someone who is quietly doing their job better.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Than you. It's the quickest way to tell everyone watching that the problem isn't just your stats, it's your mindset. Bonner versus Hull, the reality check. Bonner's struggles this season haven't been a secret. The shot selection has been questionable, the efficiency has been low, and the impact on the court has been fading. What's made it worse is the perception that she's relying more on officiating bails and her reputation than on actually making the hard plays when they matter. Lexie, on the other hand, hasn't been lighting up the scoreboard every night, but she's been doing something arguably more important, bringing consistent defense, hustle, and reliability to every possession. Even when her shot isn't falling, she's locked in defensively, she's crashing the boards, and she's making the kind of team-first plays that keep her coach's trust. That's why she's in the starting lineup now. Not because she's the flashiest scorer, but because she brings balance, effort, and the kind of discipline that doesn't show up in highlight reels but wins games. And that's what makes Bonner's bum comments so ironic. You can't call someone a bum when the tape and the box score show they're doing more for the team than you are right now. That's not trash talk. That's projection. The veteran trap. Here's the truth about being a veteran in pro sports. If you want to stay relevant, you have to evolve. The game gets faster. Younger players come in hungrier. Your physical tools start to change. The ones who last are the ones who adapt. The ones who double down on defense, sharpen their decision-making, and embrace leadership even when the shots aren't falling. Bonner hasn't made that adjustment. Instead of becoming a defensive stopper or a high IQ facilitator, she's stuck in the old habits, forcing low-percentage shots, over-dribbling, and trying to draw fouls instead of finishing strong. Worse, she's not using her veteran voice to elevate the team. Leadership isn't about reminding everyone of your past strengths. It's about setting the tone right now. And when your tone is arrogance, blame-shifting, and taking shots at your replacement, you're telling the locker room exactly what your priorities are, and it's not winning. Hull's professionalism. Contrast that with Lexie Hull. She's not out here spiking quotes in the media. She's not clapping back on social media. She's just showing up, staying in her lane, and working. Even in her own shooting slumps, she's found ways to be valuable, defending the other team's best perimeter player, making the extra pass, and playing within the system instead of hijacking it. That's why she's earning the trust of her teammates and coaches. Not because she's putting up 30-point nights, but because they know exactly what they'll get from her every game. In a league where inconsistency kills rotations, that's gold. It's also why Bonner's outburst backfired so hard. Calling someone like Hull a bum doesn't stick when everyone knows she's been the one doing the little things right while you've been coasting on reputation. The entitlement problem. Bonner's comments aren't just a bad look for her. They shine a light on a bigger problem in sports: veteran entitlement. It's that mindset where some players believe past achievements should shield them from competition or criticism in the present. The reality? Pro sports is a what have you done for me lately business. Rings are nice. Past seasons matter. But if you're not producing, someone else will. And when that someone else is doing the job better, even in a different style, you either embrace it and find a new role, or you become the storyline for all the wrong reasons. That's the crossroads Bonner is at now. She can either accept that Hull's earned her spot and find ways to be a valuable veteran presence, or she can keep swinging at teammates and let her legacy take the hit. The Caitlin Clark factor. What makes this situation even more layered is that it's unfolding in the middle of a larger, more public conversation about professionalism and player treatment in the WNBA, especially with how Caitlin Clark has been targeted. Clark's been taking physical hits all season, some of them blatant, some of them borderline, with minimal intervention from the league or officials. She's been shoved, hip-checked, and body-slammed off the ball, and yet she's handled it with composure. She's not jawing at teammates or throwing public tantrums. She's keeping her focus on the game. When you put that next to Bonner's behavior, the contrast couldn't be clearer. Clark's under constant physical and media pressure, yet she's not out here trash-talking her own teammates. Meanwhile, Bonner's situation is self-inflicted, losing a starting job because someone else is outperforming her, and she's lashing out. If the league wants to set a standard for professionalism, this is exactly the kind of thing they need to address. Not with fines or suspensions necessarily, but with a culture that says, we value accountability and respect, no matter how many years you've been in the league. Why this hurts the league? The WNBA is in a growth phase right now. Attendance is up. Ratings are rising. Players like Caitlin Clark are bringing in new fans by the millions. But with that growth comes scrutiny. Every action, on and off the court, gets magnified. When veterans like Bonner take public shots at teammates instead of owning their performance, it feeds a perception problem that the league has a professionalism gap. That's not fair to the majority of players who carry themselves the right way. But perception becomes reality fast if it's not addressed. And when you combine that with the league's perceived inaction in protecting its stars, like Clark, you start to see the cracks. The narrative becomes, the WNBA doesn't protect its players, and it doesn't hold its veterans to a higher standard. That's a dangerous reputation to let grow, especially when a league is finally attracting mainstream attention and investment. The tape doesn't lie. The most damning part for Bonner is that her words don't match the tape. Anyone watching the games can see the effort gap between her and Hull right now. Hull's diving for loose balls. She's fighting through screens. She's rotating hard on defense. Bonner? Too often she's jogging back in transition, settling for contested long twos, or looking for bailout whistles instead of finishing strong. That's not a bum. That's someone outworking you. And in sports, the one getting outworked doesn't get to talk. What Bonner should do next? If Bonner wants to flip this around, it's not complicated. Own it. Acknowledge that Hull's earned her spot. Adjust the game. Focus on defense, leadership, and efficient play. Support the team publicly. Stop feeding headlines that make it seem like the locker room is fractured. Veterans who embrace the next phase of their career, even when it means coming off the bench, can extend their relevance for years. But the ones who fight it, they burn bridges fast. Why Hull will be fine. Lexie Hull doesn't need to clap back because her game already does the talking. Every steal, every contested rebound, every possession she plays hard is a reminder of why she's in the lineup. She's not trying to be the star. She's not worried about who gets the headlines. She's there to win, and her teammates know it. That's why she's gaining respect while Bonner's losing it. The bigger lesson. This isn't just a Bonner versus Hull thing. It's a microcosm of the WNBA's bigger challenge. Maintaining a culture of accountability and professionalism while the spotlight gets brighter. Players like Hull, grounded, consistent, and team-first, should be the example. Players like Clark, talented, targeted, but still composed, should be protected and celebrated. And veterans like Bonner, they should be setting the tone, not dragging it down. Because in a league fighting for mainstream respect, every little crack in professionalism becomes a talking point. And right now, Bonner's words are one of those cracks. Final thought. Calling Lexie Hull a bum wasn't just petty. It was short-sighted. Hull's doing the work. Bonner's not backing up her talk. And the WNBA, if it's smart, will use moments like this to remind everyone that no matter how long you've been in the game, the rules of professionalism and accountability apply to you. Otherwise, they risk letting this kind of entitlement fester. And in a league this competitive, that's the fastest way to lose both games and fans. The sting of Bonner's words wasn't just in the insult itself, but in how public it became. Words travel faster in the WNBA now than they ever have before. What might have once been a locker room mutter or an in-game chirp is now replayed on social media, clipped on podcasts, and dissected in highlight packages. It becomes a soundbite, and a soundbite becomes a narrative. For Lexie Hull, being called a bum wasn't going to change her approach. She has built her career on staying level-headed, no matter what's happening around her. She's the type to quietly go back to the gym, put up extra shots, review defensive film, and keep doing the things that got her into the starting lineup in the first place. She knows she earned her spot. She knows the coaching staff trusts her. And she knows that trust didn't come from just one good shooting night. It came from months of consistent effort and being where she needed to be when she needed to be there. For Bonner, though, the backlash was immediate and unavoidable. The footage of her calling Hull a bum spread almost instantly. It didn't take long for fans to point out the irony of her insult, especially given how her own performances have looked lately. Clips of her settling for contested long twos, jogging back on defense, or missing assignments started making the rounds as well. It was almost like the basketball gods had queued up the receipts. If you're going to talk that kind of talk, the game has to back it up. And Bonner's game right now just isn't doing that. The dynamic between the two players also highlights something that's been brewing in the WNBA for a while. The tension between veterans and younger players in a league that's rapidly changing. This isn't the same WNBA it was 5 years ago. The arrival of new stars like Caitlin Clark has drawn unprecedented media attention, fan engagement, and sponsorship opportunities. That attention shifts the balance of power in subtle ways. Suddenly, players who have been grinding for over a decade find themselves sharing, or even losing, the spotlight to newcomers. For some veterans, that's exciting. They see it as a sign the league is growing. For others, it's threatening. When a veteran loses a starting spot, the best response is usually to embrace a new role, focus on contributing in different ways, and show that leadership is about more than being on the floor for the opening tip. But ego can get in the way of that. And when ego speaks louder than performance, it's almost impossible to keep the respect of the locker room. What made this incident sting even more for fans was that it didn't happen in isolation. The league is already in the middle of a much larger debate about accountability, professionalism, and protecting its stars. Caitlin Clark has been at the center of that conversation all season, enduring physical targeting from opponents while getting little protection from referees or the league office. Every shove, every off-ball hit, every no-call has added fuel to a growing perception that the WNBA isn't doing enough to protect its biggest investments, its players. Against that backdrop, Bonner's jab at Hull feels like another example of misplaced priorities. Instead of focusing on how to elevate her own game or support her team, she's adding to the noise, undermining a teammate, and giving fans another reason to question the professionalism within the league. It's a small crack, but when you're already under a microscope, small cracks can quickly look like fault lines. Hull's reaction, or lack thereof, is what's kept this from becoming a full-blown distraction for the Fever. She's not the type to fire back through the media or turn into a feud. By keeping her head down and letting her game do the talking, she's made it harder for the story to live beyond a news cycle. Still, fans and analysts have long memories, and they'll be watching to see if Bonner's play changes or if this kind of attitude pops up again. The bigger issue is that this kind of incident exposes the league to the same criticism it's been trying to shake off for years, that it doesn't always handle internal conflicts or player conduct as proactively as it should. The WNBA is growing fast, but with growth comes heightened expectations. Sponsors want to be associated with a professional, competitive, and cohesive product. Fans want to believe their favorite players are bought into the team above all else. When a veteran lashes out like this, it chips away at that image. It also puts coaches in a tricky position. Do you address the comment directly in the locker room and risk making it a bigger deal? Or do you let it slide in the hopes it blows over, knowing that silence might be read as condoning the behavior? Coaches have to balance egos, protect the chemistry, and make sure that one player's words don't derail the work everyone else is doing. That's a lot of energy spent on something that never needed to happen in the first place. For Bonner, the way forward is going to be defined by what she does next. If she takes the criticism on board, owns up to letting frustration get the better of her, and starts contributing in a way that helps her team win, this could fade into the background as just another heated moment in a long season. But if she doubles down, keeps chirping, or lets her effort continue to slip, it will follow her. The court is the only place to change that narrative. Meanwhile, Lexie Hull doesn't need to do anything differently. She's in the lineup because she earned it. She's defending the other team's top scorers. She's making smart plays. And she's not trying to be something she's not. Even during shooting slumps, she's valuable. That's the kind of player every coach wants. And if she keeps doing it, the noise around her will always be just that, noise. In a lot of ways, this whole situation mirrors the larger problem with the league's handling of Caitlin Clark's treatment. Both come down to respect for teammates, for opponents, and for the game itself. When players cross lines, whether it's through physical play or public disrespect, the response needs to set a clear tone. Without that, you end up with a product that feels undisciplined and fractured, no matter how talented the rosters are. The WNBA's leadership has been slow to step into these culture-shaping moments, and that's risky. It leaves too much room for fans and media to fill in the gaps with their own interpretations. It also risks alienating players who feel like they're not being supported, whether that's Clark wondering why no one is stepping in to stop the hits, or Hull seeing her work dismissed by a veteran who isn't performing. Fans might brush off trash talk as part of sports, and in many cases, it is. But there's a difference between competitive edge and cheap shots, and this was the latter. The irony of Bonner's comment is that it says far more about her own insecurities than about Hull's abilities. And anyone who's watched the Fever this season knows it. The challenge now is whether the league, the teams, and the players themselves can move past moments like this and focus on what really matters. For Bonner, that means putting in the work to get back to being a reliable on-court presence. For Hull, it means continuing to lead by example. For the WNBA, it means making sure the culture it's promoting is one where professionalism isn't optional. In a league on the rise, every moment counts. Every headline shapes public perception. And every time a player speaks, especially a veteran, they're not just representing themselves. They're representing the WNBA as a whole. That's a responsibility that should never be taken lightly, no matter how many seasons you've played or how many trophies you've won. This incident, like the ongoing conversation about player protection for Caitlin Clark, is a reminder that leadership in sports isn't just about performance. It's about how you carry yourself in the moments when things aren't going your way. It's about setting the tone for the next generation and proving that respect for the game goes hand in hand with competing at the highest level. The truth is, Lexie Hull doesn't need Bonner's approval. She's already proven she belongs. And if the Fever's success this season is any indication, she's only going to keep proving it. The only question is whether Bonner will decide to be part of that success or keep standing in her own way. If Bonner's words were meant to rattle Hull, they failed from the start. Lexie has the kind of temperament that makes her almost impossible to knock off balance. She's not one to get caught up in verbal back and forths, especially when the scoreboard and the film can speak for her. Her game is built on focus, on executing the details her coaches trust her to handle, and on doing the little things that don't make headlines but win possessions. That's a kind of mental armor no insult can pierce. Still, the ripple effects of that one jab were felt in more ways than Bonner probably imagined. For teammates, it forced an unspoken choice. Either ignore it and hope it goes away, or quietly recalibrate how they see her as a leader. Veterans are supposed to elevate the locker room, not fracture it. When a younger player earns a spot, the veteran's job is to push them in practice, mentor them when needed, and make sure the team stays unified. Bonner's choice to go public with her frustration flipped that expectation upside down. It also gave critics of the WNBA's culture more fuel. The league has been fighting hard to project an image of professionalism, unity, and competitive integrity. Incidents like this, petty, public, and completely avoidable, feed the narrative that internal discipline isn't where it needs to be. And when you layer this on top of the league's ongoing reluctance to clamp down on excessive physical targeting of stars like Caitlin Clark, the optics become even worse. Fans notice patterns. They see Clark taking hits without the league stepping in. They see Bonner taking shots at a teammate without any public accountability. Even if these are two separate issues on paper, they create a shared impression that the WNBA lets too much slide. That's dangerous in a time when the league's visibility is higher than ever, because visibility brings not just opportunity, but scrutiny. For Hull, the best answer was, and still is, to keep producing. She knows her role isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most reliable. That reliability is exactly why she's in the starting lineup. Even if her stat lines don't pop, her consistency makes her a foundation piece. Coaches love players they can trust in crunch time, and Hull has earned that through effort, not entitlement. Bonner's path forward is trickier. She can repair her image, but it's going to take tangible action. Apologies mean little in sports if they aren't followed by effort. If she starts playing with the kind of intensity that matches her words, contributes in ways that lift her team, and supports Hull publicly, the narrative can shift. But if she keeps leaning on past achievements while her current game stays stagnant, the instant regret part of this headline is going to haunt her until she's no longer in a position to lose a starting job, because she's no longer in the league. The Fever, for their part, can't afford to let this become a distraction. This is a team building something real, a culture of trust, buy-in, and shared goals. Caitlin Clark's emergence, Lexie Hull's consistency, and Sophie Cunningham's leadership are all pieces of a bigger puzzle. Allowing side feuds or petty comments to linger undermines that progress. This is where strong coaching comes in, making sure the message in the locker room is clear. The only battles worth fighting are the ones on the court against opponents. The WNBA's leadership also has an opening here, if they choose to take it. They could use this as a teachable moment, not to publicly punish Bonner, but to reinforce expectations for conduct among all players. A quiet word from the league office reminding teams that public disrespect toward teammates reflects poorly on everyone could go a long way toward preventing repeat situations. Small actions like that can help protect the league's image while keeping the focus where it should be, on the game. In the end, this whole thing will either fade or fester based on how the people involved choose to handle it. Hull will keep working. Clark will keep taking the hits and showing resilience until someone finally decides to protect her. Bonner has the power to shift her own storyline, but only if she's willing to swallow some pride and show she can still be the kind of player who leads by example. Until then, the contrast between the two players is stark. One is building her reputation possession by possession. The other is risking hers word by word. In a league that's still earning its place in the broader sports conversation, those choices matter more than ever.